Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to my channel, my lovelies. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I am so happy you found me. I do so hope that you will like and subscribe before you leave. Become part of the Mama family. Mama's got your back, at least where makeup's concerned, and definitely when that makeup is cheap. Today is New Makeup Monday. Unfortunately, we don't have any new makeup to talk about. I'm on a little bit of a low buy at the moment. I did place an order, so we have some new stuff coming for next week. But for this week's video, I figured we'd do something just a little bit different. I was combing through my collection, trying to see if I had anything I hadn't talked to you guys about yet, and I kind of came across my Colourpop collection. Now, it is a little bit extensive. Before I even get into it, please, baby doll, do not think that this is a brag. There is no reason in the world for anyone to have this much makeup. That is, unless you just enjoy having a ton of makeup. I am a makeup addict. I'm a makeup freak. I enjoy makeup to the very, very depths of my soul. It genuinely makes me happy. So I have quite a bit of it. I have 31 Colourpop palettes, ranging in sizes from like 5 pans to like 20 pans. Like, we've got lots to go over. Y'all, we're gonna rank my Colourpop collection. We're gonna start with my least used, least liked palettes, and then work our way up to my most used, most liked palettes. Before we get started, a very special, very warm welcome to any of those that are new to my channel. I am so incredibly happy that you are here. If you enjoy the content, I do so hope that you will mash that thumbs up button. I hope that you will subscribe if you have not already. And I hope that you will ring my bell, turn on your notifications, so that way, next time I upload a video, you can come right back here and we can hang out together again. Also, my makeup is done. I look fabulous. Just playing, but I really do. I really like my makeup today. It turned out exactly the way that I wanted it to. I wanted to do like, I was inspired by like those neon signs, you know? I wanted to do something very neon-y and like, I think we nailed it today. We nailed the vibe. I used the Glamlight Rick and Morty palette, one of my very, very favorite releases of this year. It is a spectacular palette. Love it so, so very much. Glamlight is one of those brands that I am head over heels for. I love just about everything that they do. But yeah, I did, of course, do a TikTok on today's eye look. If you are interested, I'll make sure to put the link for that, as well as all of my other socials, in the description box below. And of course, I will list every palette that we're talking about today in order from the same way that I'm ranking it. Y'all, if you have any questions about anything that I'm talking about in today's video, all you have to do is leave me a comment and I will get back to you. All right, today's video is probably going to be just a little bit of a longer one. I'm going to end up sitting here waxing poetic about probably every single one of these palettes. So get cozy, get comfy, get you a big old glass of something to drink, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. Starting off at the very bottom of the pile, palette number 31 is this one right here. This is the Too Hot palette. This was released, I want to say, a year and a half, 2 years ago. I, of course, picked this up off of the sale page. I didn't pay full price for dang near any of the palettes in today's video. You guys know I am a sale page queen. The only exception to that are going to be some of the Halloween, like the Hocus Pocus palettes. I couldn't live without, so I definitely paid full price for those. But everything else I got while it was on sale, this definitely being one of them. So this was released in a colorful collection that they did a while back. They did a pink one, a blue one, a green one, an orange one, a purple one. It was kind of like rainbow themed. I picked up this pink one. It's a pretty palette. It is a beautiful palette. I love the colors in here. You've got this one that's a little bit of a duochrome. It's a really gorgeous soft baby pink to gold shade. Stunning. Unfortunately, the actual formula, like the quality of the shadows in here, is less than stellar. It's subpar even by Colourpop standards. Oftentimes, if you have more than a few Colourpop palettes, you will know that Colourpop has a few different formulas that they kind of bust out every so often. This is that really kind of Colourpop quality. It's just not great. I found that these stained my eyelids, which I really don't, it usually doesn't bother me, but I just had to put so much effort and kind of love and TLC into these shadows to get them to look good and not patchy and kind of dry on my eyelids. Just wasn't my favorite. I think the shimmers in here are very, very pretty, but when it comes to the mattes, they're pigmented, but they're just a little bit lackluster. I think the only reason I've kept this palette around as long as I have is just because the tones in here are so pretty. But I've had this for, I want to say, a couple years at this point, and I've only used it maybe 1 or 2 times. So yeah, that's why it's at the bottom of the pile. So that was number 31. Moving on to number 30. This is from the same collection. This is the blue variation. This is the Rumor Has It palette. And I love the color story of this palette so much. It leans more on that kind of periwinkle side. They're very purpley blues. They're so beautiful. They look stunning on the eyes. Tones like this really just make my eyes pop. It just makes it look like my eyes are glowing. I love them. I do desperately wish that the quality of the eyeshadows in here was just a little bit better. You touch them and they feel so good. They feel so velvety and smooth and soft. However, you can see that swatch wasn't great. They just go on the eye and they just don't do, they're just hard to work with. They feel dry. They look a little bit chalky on the skin. Just not my favorite. So I have used this, I want to say 2 or 3 times because the tones in here are so pretty, but yeah, I just don't reach for it very often because the quality is just not that good. Next up, I have, this is the Moon Haze palette, and Colourpop did a collection where it was based on neutral color stories with like a pop of neon right in the center. So they had this really gorgeous coral one. They had a pink one, like a yellowish green one. I thought it was stunning. You guys know I love color. I love neon colors specifically. And I just thought that this was such a groundbreaking concept. However, in practice, it just looks disjointed. The quality on this one is much better than the previous 2. That's why this is coming in at number 29. It looks beautiful on the eyes. However, the color story, there's just something about it that there's a big disconnect between the very neutral shades and then there's just this one neon pop. I could never make it look right on my eye. I could never figure out how to use this color story in a way that made me happy. Might be different for somebody else. Again, this is just my opinion. So if you have a different opinion, please let me know in the comments below. Do you have any of these palettes? Do you feel differently about them? I would love to know. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about them. However, as much as I love this packaging and as much as I adore this bright neon coral shade, I just didn't like it. I just didn't like the way that it looked on my eyes. I didn't like the way that the colors played together. Quality is really fantastic, just not a fan of the color story. Next, we have the Crush palette, and this one was a collection that they did that was based off of all kinds of like love words. So they had the Crush palette and the Amour palette, and I think I want to say it came out for Valentine's Day, but I could be very wrong about that. This is such a beautiful, beautiful palette. I've used this a couple of times. It is a super easy, soft glam, warm toned kind of moment. You guys know I'm all about that. I love the way that this palette is set up as well. It goes from super light to fairly deep. It's just a great palette altogether. If you are looking for something that is super easy to just on a daily basis just get on your eye, you don't have to think too awful much about it, this is going to do that for you. Going on to number 27, we have the Amour palette, and this is my favorite 5-pan Colourpop palette. It's stunning. The colors in here are just my absolute everything. It is the perfect mix of nude and mauve to me. Tones like this they go onto the skin, especially if you have blue eyes. They just make blue eyes glow in such a fantastic way. On top of that, the quality of this is so nice. Super easy to work with and use. I love that there's a pressed glitter in the center. I do really enjoy the Colourpop pressed glitter formula. It's not my favorite. My favorite comes from Profusion. They're so, so good. However, this one is a little bit chunkier than the Profusion formula. It goes onto the eye. It really grabs your attention. It catches the light in a really beautiful way. However, you definitely do need to use a glitter glue when using the Colourpop glitter formula, just because it is a little bit larger. It tends to produce a little bit more fallout. However, the tones in here are stunning. You get a good amount of depth. You get fairly light to fairly deep. A couple of good mid-tones in the center. Yeah, it's just a beautiful palette. This, out of all of my 5-pan palettes, is the one that I have used the most. Probably will be in my collection till the day I die, just because the tones in here are so beautiful and so perfect for when I want that super easy, kind of effortless, mauve-y, ethereal, romantic kind of eye look. This gives it to me every single time. Number 26 is this 9-pan palette. I got this while it was on sale for $9. That's kind of the rule I like to go with. I like to live by when it comes to Colourpop palettes on sale. When it gets to be about $1 a pan, I am all for it. $1 a pan or less, and I can't resist myself. I picked this up a couple of years ago. This is it's basically exactly what it says it is, what it looks like. I am not a big fan of this plastic packaging. Excuse me. I am not a fan of this plastic packaging. I definitely prefer the Colourpop cardboard packaging. I think this plastic packaging just feels cheap. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like the way that it feels in my hand. However, it does come with a full-size mirror, which is nice. This is your color story. Now, I have used this a couple times. I want to say I've maybe used it 3 or 4 times. It is a really pretty red palette. I just don't reach for it very often. I'm not a big fan of the red tones in here. Everything leans very pink. If I want to do a pink eye look, I'm going to get a pink palette. Everything leans very pink, and it's very dusty as well. Nothing in here is like a true red. Everything's a little bit off and a little bit dusty, almost a little bit bricky. I was expecting this to be like a very true, like watermelon red kind of palette, and it's not. That doesn't mean that it's not beautiful, because it is. It just isn't exactly what I was looking for. And I just don't reach for it. Honestly, I just don't do red eye looks very often. So yeah, it's just not one that I reach for, but it is a really, really nice palette. 25 is the It's My Pleasure palette. And this is a really beautiful palette. Again, it's in that plastic packaging that I'm not a big fan of. But the reason that this one is ranking so low is that I just don't like the tones in here. I'm not a big fan of the tones in here at all. It's mauve, and it very much reminds me of the Amore palette. But I like the Amore tones a little bit better. These ones definitely have a little bit more purple going on, but again, it's just one of those color stories that just felt a little bit disjointed for me. You have some that are purple leaning, but then you have others that are more plummy, and then when you mix them on the eye, it just looks a little bit weird, in my opinion. I also don't really like this kind of like brownie blurple kind of shade. It's just not my favorite. The formula in here is really beautiful. It's like standard, it's like the standard Colourpop formula and quality, really great quality. The shimmers in here are really beautiful as well. Nicely pigmented. Just wasn't my favorite. And because of that, I just don't reach for it very often. Next up at number 24 is the Baroque palette. This one came in, this was another collection that they released, and I picked up a couple of the palettes from this collection. There's another one from this collection that's a little bit higher up in the rankings. The reason this ranks so low is just because I don't reach for it very often. I adore the packaging. It's cardboard packaging, which you guys know I prefer very much. I think the tones in here are beautiful. It's like slate gray, silvery kind of tones. They're very smoky, they're very deep, they're very rich and a little bit mysterious. This is one of those palettes that I will own till the end of time, just because I don't have anything else quite like this in my collection. It is a very unique palette. It's really beautiful, but it is a vibe and it is a moment, and it definitely takes a little bit of, they're so pretty, but it's a moment. You have to be in the mood to wear these kinds of shades. I don't often reach for super deep kind of gray tones like this very often, unless I really want to do it up and do like a full-on, full glam kind of like big black wing, big giant silvery smoky eye kind of moment. And then when I want to do that, this is the palette that I reach for every single time because it never lets me down. Shimmers in here are so like gunmetal and smoky and like taupey bronze. They're so pretty. This one's a little bit of a duochrome. It's got a little bit of like a taupey, silvery kind of shift to it. Super, super pretty. Unfortunately, this isn't available anymore. If you searched hard enough on eBay or something like that, I'm sure you could find it. But this is just a really beautiful palette. That's why it's coming in at number 24. Next up, we have the Hocus Pocus Witching Hour palette. Now, I know that this is going to be just a little bit mind-blowing to everybody. It was mind-blowing to me. Y'all, when I tell you ranking these palettes and putting them in order from best to worst was the hardest freaking thing I've done all week. I sat here and I agonized for over 2 hours trying. I would make my list and then I would rearrange it. And then I'd think, oh, okay, we're good. And then I would rearrange it again. Oh, it happened over and over and over again. This was one of those palettes that I really, really struggled with because, y'all, I've never used it. I've never used this palette. It is a beautiful palette. I adore the packaging. The packaging is heavy and luxe and it feels expensive. I actually was able to get this palette for free. When the Hocus Pocus 2 palette came out, they did a deal where you could buy anything from the Hocus Pocus 2 collection and they would send you this palette for free. So, you know, mama was on it like butter on rice. And I ordered the Hocus Pocus 2 palette and then got this one for free. Anyway, I was super excited to have this in my collection. And then when I got it and I was like, oh, that's so, so pretty. And I never touched it. I don't know why I never touched it. I don't know if it's because I'm scared to touch it and ruin it. But I think mostly what it is it just doesn't inspire me. It just doesn't inspire me. I think that this is basically a neutral quad and they put a purple and green shade in there to make it seem a little bit more like Hocus Pocus, but for me it doesn't say anything about Hocus Pocus at all. It doesn't capture the movie. All of these 3 shades down here are so similar. It just seems redundant. It doesn't seem like it was well thought out. It's not well executed. The actual quality in here, stellar, fantastic quality. I look at this palette and I'm like, oh, I really, really, really want to use it. But then I sit there and there's just nothing I want to do with it. It doesn't inspire me. It doesn't bring me makeup joy. So yeah, that's why it's coming in at number 23. Next up, we have the Lucky Penny palette, and this one is a fairly new one to my collection, and I'm a sucker for tones like this. This has been out for, I want to say, a good long while. This is still available on the Colourpop website. It's even on sale right now. I think if they still have that sale going on. I picked this up for $9. Definitely worth that. Again, $1 a pan. I can do that all day, every day. It's a really pretty palette. However, again, it's a little bit monotonous to me. I just think that all of the tones in here are so similar. And I think that is the case with a lot of the Colourpop monochromatic palettes, right? Which is kind of the whole point of a monochromatic palette. You want everything to be the same color. However, when it comes to the same color, I want them to not be the same exact color in every pan. I want there to be a nice difference. I want there, there's not going to be any contrast, but I would like different depth levels. I would like different undertones, things like that. However, when it comes to this, I just feel like all of the tones, I feel like they're just all really, really similar. And it is a beautiful palette and creates a really gorgeous eye look. Especially, I think that this would look good on just about anybody. If you had brown eyes, this would bring out the copper and like those warm golden tones in your eyes in a heartbeat. It looks beautiful on blue eyes. That kind of orangey undertone in the copper really, really complements a blue eye moment. But it's a beautiful palette. It's not my favorite. I don't think there's not a lot of depth here. Everything is kind of very mid-toned. And because of that, it makes it very difficult for me to get one cohesive eye look out of this palette. So what ends up happening is this becomes a companion palette for me. So what's going to end up happening is I'm going to bring it in to something else, like a bigger palette that's got a lot more variety in it. And I'm just going to end up using the shimmer shades as a lid topper, something like that, as an all over the lid shade. I mean, and it's perfect for that because they're so rich. Like the tones in here are so beautiful and deep and rich and gorgeous. But see, that's 2 different shades and they look almost identical on the back of my hand. It's just, there's not enough. Yeah, and on the eye, these are all going to look identical. So it just makes me feel like you're paying $9 for the same shade over and over again. Up, we have the Heavy Petal palette. This is another new one to my collection. First off, let me say I adore the packaging on this. Really fantastic, like heavy duty. It feels luxe. It feels heavy. I love how like the edges are smooth. This just feels like a high quality palette. This is absolutely beautiful. I struggled with this one. I wanted to place this just a little bit higher, but again, I just don't reach for it very often. We're going to get into why in just a minute. This is the Heavy Petal palette. Packaging 10 out of 10, really, really gorgeous. Open it up and this is your color story. Now, this is one of those color stories that is going to appeal to 1,000,001 different people. It is beautiful. It's soft and it's romantic and it's very, very everyday. However, for me, there's just not enough going on here. Very rarely do I ever reach for palettes that are this soft. This is gonna be like super, like if I have like to go to a PTA meeting and like I need to make a really, really good impression and I need to look like I've never cussed a day in my life, then this is probably the palette that I would go for. It just is very simple and soft and feminine and flirty and is so, so beautiful. Just not something that I reach for very often. And I love this palette because there's so many fun textures in here. So you have the standard kind of metallic shimmer shades, but you have some that are much more rich and opaque. And then you have others that are more like topper shades. So this one is super rich and like pigmented, but this one is very sheer and reflective and is going to be beautiful over just about anything you want to top it on. But then you have shades like this, and this is chunky and very, very different. It's very sparkly and glittery. It's just, okay. So it is a stunning palette. It is so beautiful. I wanted so badly to put this so much higher in the rankings. I just don't reach for it very often. And I know that we're doing this from most to least used or from least to most used. And I just know that I don't reach for this very often. I think that this is such a beautiful everyday palette. I think that it's fun. I think that it's well curated. I think that it's well executed. Coming in at number 20. This is the Wine and Only palette. Y'all, I lusted after this palette so hardcore when it was released. I want to say this was released probably about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It might have been a good long while ago, but I had to have it. I had to have it. I thought that the tones in here were so, so beautiful. I love a good, deep, plummy, rich burgundy eye. I think that it is so complementary to my eye color. This tone in general is just that kind of like winey burgundy color. Just looks so beautiful, contrasting against a blue eye. It is so, so pretty. However, this isn't higher in the rankings, again, because there's no depth here. Like there's no contrast. There's no, what is the word that I'm looking for? There's no contrast here. Everything is the same tone. Everything is very deep. And because of that, it makes it very difficult for me to get like a full-blown, like fully cohesive, fully done eye look. This is going to be one of those palettes where I'm going to have to pull in something a little bit lighter. There's no highlight shade in here. There's no like transition shade in here for me. Everything is super deep and super rich. So if you have like deep dark skin tone, or definitely darker than mine, this probably is going to look fantastic on you. It looks great on my skin tone. I just have to bring other things in to complement the deep, rich tones in this palette. So that's why it's coming in at number 20. But it is a really beautiful palette, and I listed after it so hardcore, and I finally got it, and I was like, oh, okay. The same can be said for number 19. This is the Wild Child palette. This was another one of those palettes that I just wanted so badly. I didn't know what to do with myself. I have the same problem with this palette as I did with the Wine and Only though. Everything is pretty much the same tone. Now this one is ranking just a bit higher because you do have some transition tones in here. Like these ones are just a little bit lighter, so I can get a more finished look using this palette even just on its own. Also, I like the mixture of textures in this palette as well. So you have your really gorgeous, smooth kind of mattes, but then you also have your gorgeous, like, silky metallics. But then you have something like this in the center, which just in, like, the Heavy Petal palette, it's a little bit chunkier, it's a little bit glitterier, it's got just a little bit more texture to it, and it ends up looking so pretty, and it makes the palette in and of itself a little bit more interesting. So you can see those different textures even just on the back of my hand. It's a beautiful palette. I don't know if this palette is still available, but if you can find it and if you like tones like this, so good. I think the packaging is super cute. I love this kind of, is that giraffe print on the front? Super, super pretty. I am an animal print queen. I will wear animal print all day, every day, and not feel bad about it at all. You know, I think like cheetah print, things like that, it's kind of like taboo at this point, kind of like gaudy and whatever. Y'all, I will rock a cheetah print top or cheetah print sneakers. I have a pair of cheetah print sneakers that are my absolute life, and they have hot pink laces and they just make me happy. I love animal print. This is a beautiful palette. Coming in at number 18, we have the Aura and Out palette. Now, this is one of my very oldest Colourpop palettes, but it's also probably one of my most loved. It's ranking at number 18 because I just don't reach for it very often, but it is such a beautiful palette. It hurts my heart that it's ranking so low. So this is the Aura and Out palette, and just look at those tones. Look how beautiful it is. It is the most gorgeous kind of like greeny blue pastel palette. I love the textures in here as well. You have a Super Shock formula right here. You can definitely see my my fingerprint in there. It's so beautiful. You have a pressed glitter in here as well. This one is a really beautiful like white holographic one. Such a pretty glitter. You have a great amount of depth in here. Like, it's a pastel palette, so it doesn't go super deep. This, in all honesty, should have ranked higher. Y'all, I struggled with this ranking so badly. It's just, I don't reach for it, so. But it is such a beautiful palette. I honestly don't have a bad thing to say about it. Next up at number 17, we have All That. And honestly, I want to switch these rankings because this one, I love the Aura and Out palette. However, when it comes to the All That palette, this is another one of those palettes that I lusted after so badly. But again, I have a little bit of that same problem as I do with a lot of Colourpop palettes, and it's a little bit repetitive for me. So it is a really gorgeous kind of like winey burgundy palette. I feel like this palette is what the Wine and Only should have been, because you have a great amount of depth here. You get really light to really deep. The only problem I have here is that everything seems a little bit repetitive. Like, a lot of these tones are so similar that they just look identical on the eye. So it's like you're paying for each shade twice, and it just kind of irks me a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to switch these rankings. So I'm going to put this at number 18. And then Aura and Out at number 17. So we're going to switch that just a little bit. This is a good palette. Unfortunately, it didn't age very well. Some of these shades, especially this kind of like foiled one here, it's kind of hard panned and it's lost a lot of its moisture. So it's really sticky and like hard to pick up. Yeah, not my favorite. So this one is going to be number 18. This is going to be number 17. Aura and Out. It definitely should have ranked higher. I feel bad about it now, but such a beautiful palette. This one, and even like I just stuck my fingers in all the shades and they still feel like rich and buttery and smooth. So this one aged really well, so that's nice to know. Love this one. Moving on to number 16, we have Fine Feathered, and this is I want to say within the last year this released, and this is a really beautiful palette. This is stunning. If you like kind of purpley magenta fuchsia tones, this is like right up your alley. It's a little bit pink, it's a little bit purple. You've got a good amount of depth in here. You get really light to super deep. I like the mixture of mattes and shimmers in here. It is a matte heavy palette, which you guys already know. I prefer to build with mattes and accentuate with shimmers. This is super easy to work with. You have a couple of good mid-tone shades in here. You get a couple of deeper options. Again, nothing in here goes super deep, but I don't think it's very hard to pull in like a super deep rich brown or like a black, just to kind of deepen up the outer corner. I keep a black single shadow at my desk for that very reason. So yeah, this is a beautiful palette. It's just a solid palette. It's a solid palette. You can get a nice, full, complete eye look just using this palette on its own. It's pretty. I like it a lot. Moving on to Lilac You A Lot. And this one is, I've had this for, I think this is one of the very first Colourpop palettes that I ever purchased. Again, it's got that plastic packaging, not a super fan of, but this is your color story. And I think this is so pretty. This is such a beautiful kind of like pinky purple pastel kind of moment. I like, the only shade in here that I'm not a big fan of is this one right here. Everything else is very pinky and like kind of like cool toned. And then you get to this shade and it's got more of a kind of plumminess to it. It's still very pretty and it does kind of work, but it just seems a little bit out of place. The only place on the eye I like to use this is either as a liner or on the very outer edge. The textures in here are really beautiful. You have like those shimmers are super like reflective and gorgeous. You have, and I like that the shimmers in here go from fairly light to a little bit deeper. So you have something super light and then something a little bit more mid-toned. So that way, if you wanted to do a gradient on the eye, you totally could. Yeah, this is just a really good palette. And the addition, as much as I'm not a huge fan of this shade, the addition of these two shades gives you options. So you can use this on the outer corner and then use this one as a lighter, as a liner to kind of contrast it all. It just ends up producing a very thought out, completed look. And I enjoy that. So yeah, this is really, really a pretty palette. And I was going through my collection and found out that I have 2 of them. So I'm going to be putting this one for sure in the Colourpop giveaway. Make sure that you stay tuned. I'll probably be doing another giveaway video here very, very shortly. But because I have 2 of these palettes, I'm going to be putting the brand new one in the giveaway as well. Let me know in the comments below which palettes you think I should put in the giveaway. Because I'm, you know, especially in like the bottom 20. Make your choice in the bottom 20. And we'll see what we can make happen. But for sure, this is going to go into the giveaway because I have 2 of them and I don't need 2 of them. Next up at number 14, we have Sage the Day. This is another new one to my collection. I love the packaging. I think the packaging is so classy and timeless. I love this. It's so kind of like, it's so cute. It's just super, super cute. It feels nice in the hand as well. I like the texture on the packaging. You open it up and though you don't get mirrors, I think that's the only difference between the cardboard and the plastic packaging is the plastic packaging I'm sure was a little bit more expensive because it's got the mirror in there. But honestly, I don't use the mirror in palettes anyway. I'm always holding my mirror like right in front of my face because I'm freaking blind. So I would rather lose the mirror and then get something that I can actually like, that just feels better in my hand. I like the weight of the cardboard packaging better. I like the way that it feels in my hand a little bit better. Anyway, this is the Sage the Day palette. I am in love with this palette. I think this palette is phenomenal. I don't have a bad thing to say about it. The only reason it's ranking as low as it is just because it's not a color story that I wear super often. It is a very soft, romantic kind of color story. It's very olivey and sagey. And as beautiful as that is, for me, this is kind of like a wintertime, fall kind of color story. And that is because it's such a specific seasonal color story for me. I only reach for it in fall and winter. And that just kind of means that I'm just not going to get as much use out of it as I do some of my other palettes. However, this is stunning. Again, there's not a ton of different textures in here, but you do get a duochrome. So this is a green to brown duochrome that is really beautiful. I think the shimmers in here are stunning. They're just stupidly pretty. The mattes in here are ridiculously easy to work with. You get a good amount of depth in here. I like that you get some neutral tones with pops of green. You go from super light to much deeper. It's well thought out. It's well executed. The color story is phenomenal. Yeah, I don't have much bad to say about this palette at all. On to number 13, we have the C3PO palette. And this one is going so low in the, first of all, packaging, even better than the regular cardboard packaging because this is kind of like a collab they did. So you get that really gorgeous cardboard packaging, but you also get a mirror. So if you enjoy a mirror, this is the one that you should go for. The reason that this is as low in the ranking as it is just because this is a companion palette for me. The only reason I picked this palette up was for these really gorgeous golden shades, and I can't do an entire eye look just with these really pretty golden shades. So it's going to have to be something that I use with something else. So I'm not going to be able to get a full, complete look from this palette. However, it's ranking as high as it is because it's just pretty. The shades in here are just absolutely stunning. I love the way that they look on the eyes. I love the amount of shimmers that you get in here. Look at that color right there. It is the richest, most gorgeous kind of like fiery orange tone. Absolutely stunning. So pretty. You also get a couple of Super Shock formulas in here as well. This one right here is a Super Shock. Oh, that one's just absolutely everything. Yeah, absolutely stunning. It is achievable. It is achievable to get a full eye look just using this palette alone. However, it's not my kind of makeup, right? So because it's not my kind of makeup, it's ranking a little bit lower than maybe someone else would rank it. Please don't think though that because it's a little bit lower in the ranking, that means it's a bad palette. It is definitely not. The quality on this palette is top notch. Everything from the shimmers to the mattes, absolutely amazing. Really, really well done palette. Just the color story, personal preference, it's just not enough for me. So it's ranking a little bit lower, but such a good one. Number 12 is the Sandstone palette. So this one I get a ton of use out of just because it's a super easy palette to play with. It's a super easy palette to work with. I've had this palette for, I want to say, probably forever. It's one of my oldest Colourpop palettes. I paid $22 for this palette. That's how much I wanted this, and I don't pay $22 for just about anything, but I paid that, and I think that was full price for this palette. But I just thought the tones were so beautiful. When I ordered this palette, I thought, oh, you know what? This is going to be my go-to palette. This is going to be that palette that when I want to do a neutral look or when I need a transition shade, something like that, like this is going to be the palette that I go for. And it is. It's just super easy. I love the textures in this palette as well. There's a lot of mattes in here, but most of the tones in here are that really beautiful sequined kind of formula. So it's matte, but it's like matte with a little bit of something extra. Now I know sequined shades kind of irritate some people. I really like them. Of course, I love glitter. So when I can add glitter to my face, it's always a good thing. It's never a negative. But a lot of these shades are sequined. So, and then on top of that, the actual shimmers in here are they're stellar. They're really beautiful. This is like that, like really good, high quality Colourpop formula. It's easy to work with. It's pigmented, but it blends effortlessly. It builds on itself. It's just a really, really good formula. And I don't think that you can get this palette anymore. It is super, super old. But if you have this in your collection, let this be a reminder to go dig it out. Also, I just love the rusty tones in here. Like everything is kind of warm and rich. It's definitely a warm toned palette. But these shades down here, they have that kind of like rusty warmth to them that is just so flattering. It's that mix between brown and red that just goes with blue eyes and just makes them glow. I also really adore this pop of kind of like burnt sienna orange and this mustard yellow, and then you have these like kind of green iridescent shimmers too. It's just pretty. It is like a colorful neutral palette, and it's to die for. It's so good. Next up we have Ooh La La. So Ooh La La is coming in at number 11, and this is just a really pretty pink palette. If you like pink and purple looks, this is a good one. I think that it is color for the neutral lover, because even though it's a colorful palette, somehow this ends up going on the eyes and looking so neutral. It's so neutral and so wearable and like colorful at the same time. Very, very pretty. It's not ranking higher because I think that some of the shimmers are really, really sheer, and that's not my favorite. Especially this one in the center. It is the most beautiful kind of like magenta color, but it's just not true to pan. It goes on and it gives you that color, but it is so sheer. It's just not my favorite formula. Yeah, and then once you blend out, just kind of like blends away to nothing. Not my favorite. However, I think it's a little bit hard panned, honestly, and it was hard panned when I first got it because it's acted like that since I first played with this palette. Otherwise though, all of the shimmers in here are really beautiful. That kind of standard Colourpop formula. They have that little bit of moisture to them. Yeah, the reason it's not ranking higher is because I don't think it's anything super special. The looks I get from this palette are beautiful, and you know, I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's just not exceptional in any way. So yeah, if you're looking for a good pink palette, is this still available on the website? I'm not sure that it is, but y'all, this has been around for absolutely forever. Really cute palette. Next up at number 10, we're in the top 10 now. Next up at number 10 is Honey, and this one is just, I mean, ugh, it's so good. It is so good. This is a companion palette for me, but yellow palettes actually are kind of hard to come by, like especially like full on yellow palettes. Yellow is one of those colors that I think is very sadly overlooked in the makeup world. I think people are scared to wear it, in all honesty, and you know, brands are scared that if they make a palette devoted to yellow, that it's just not going to sell. I can completely understand that. However, this is just the most beautiful bright yellow palette. It's like daffodils and daisies. It's just really beautiful. I love the tones in here. You have tones that range from like this really gorgeous kind of like mustardy shade to like bright sunshiny almost neon yellow. Really gorgeous. I love that you get a pressed glitter in the center. I also really love the shimmers in here. The shimmers in here manage to be like, they're yellow and not gold. And I think that's the problem that I have with some yellow palettes, is like there's a difference between yellow and gold, right? Like gold is gold and yellow is yellow. And when you're searching for that bright yellow shimmer, it's hard because sometimes like when it's just gold and there's a difference. And I can't really explain it other than to say yellow is yellow and gold is gold. And the shimmers in here are indeed yellow, like especially just this one right here. It has really beautiful sunshiny yellow shimmer. I definitely think this one leans more gold than it does yellow. Can you see the difference between that golden shade and this yellow shade? Can you see the difference? Like it just makes a difference on the eye. Either way, it's a really beautiful palette. Pretty. This palette brings me joy. And then on top of that, this glitter is just absolutely just killer. It's a killer palette. Really beautiful. Love it so much. So yeah, this is number 10. Number 9 is the Coast to Coral palette, and this ranks as high as it does just because I love these. I love these shades. Peach and Coral is one of those shades that I feel like they go good with absolutely everything. There is a certain amount of warmth in these shades that just brings my eyes to life. It makes them glow. It brings out this kind of like peaches and cream tone in my complexion. It's just completely and totally flattering for my skin tone and for my eye color, and I just can't get over it. And I think this is just about every shade of like peachy coral that you ever could need. I like the mixture of mattes and shimmers in this palette. I like that you go from fairly light to fairly deep. And again, this is one of those sequined shades that I just cannot stop raving about. Can you see the glitter in there and how pretty it is? And the reason I like the Colourpop sequined shades is just because like the glitter doesn't just fall out all over the place. Like it actually stays on the eye if you don't overblend it, and then it gives you that little bit of sparkle throughout a mostly matte eye look that just makes something special happen, and I really enjoy that. Even on brown eyes, I think tones like this are stunning. Could you imagine this color on a green eye? Oh, it's just tones like this are so fantastic. I mean, there was no way that this palette was going any lower than number 9. So good. Cannot live without it. Next up at number 8, we have this one. So this is the Ornate palette. And again, I talked about the Baroque palette. This was from the same collection. And this one I just love for, I mean, an obvious reasons. This to me is like a sunset palette on steroids. You have these tones that are so rusty and warm. And then you also have things that are just a little bit deeper and a little bit brickier. It's so good. I love the gradient in this palette as well. I love this super kind of like dusty, dirty mustard yellow. So pretty. So you have yellows and like warm orangey corals. You've got a great amount of depth in here as well. It is a matte heavy palette, which I appreciate. This is a beautiful palette. I love this. If you like tones like this, if you like a good sunset orange kind of look, this is absolutely It's absolute perfection. So yeah, that's why it's coming in at number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have Baby Got Peach. And this one I love for the exact same reason as the Coast to Coral palette. However, this one is coming in a little bit higher just because I think that it's a little bit, there's a little bit more versatility here because you have a little bit more depth and a little bit more range. On top of that, this pressed glitter is just, it's like, it's absolutely everything. This pressed glitter is probably one of the prettiest glitters in my entire collection. It is stunning. It's, oh, and of course my camera is not going to do it justice, but it's absolutely stellar. I love the tones in here. I think that this is very, very peachy. And whereas the Coast to Coral had that kind of like peachy coral tone to it, this one has, it's a little bit softer. It's a little bit more romantic. It's a little bit dreamier, but it is so, so pretty. I even love, like, even the tones that look neutral in here still go onto the eye and look so peachy. This is one of my favorite palettes to use if I just want to do something that's just going to be soft and pretty and flattering. I will take these and I'll put it through my crease. I'll pop a really pretty shimmer on the lid and I'll be good to go. It's just effortless. It's beautiful. It turns out a beautiful look every single time. And yeah, I've never had a bad experience with this palette. Not one single time. Palette number 6 is Meant to Be. This one I think speaks for itself. It is so unique in my collection. I don't have anything else quite like this. It's really actually very difficult to come across a palette just devoted to these minty green shades. I know that it's not that color that you kind of like gravitate towards or like the first color you think of when you think of eyeshadow, but it is so beautiful and so special looking on the lids. On top of that, I just think this palette was really well done. You get just about every shade of mint green in this palette that you could ever want. You go from super light to super deep. There's a great mix of both mattes and shimmers in here. The shimmers are stellar. The mattes are killer. They're just really, really good. Super pigmented. They're pastel, but they blend out beautifully and they just pair with absolutely everything. Yeah, they're just pretty. They're just pretty. I love this palette very much for the same reason that I love Aura and Out. They're very, very similar as well, but this one is just, it's just so, so good. Pair this with like a good, like cool toned brown, and you've got mint chocolate chip going on, and it is just, oh, it is so, so good. Love it. Next, we have number 5 is Lush. We're in the top 5 now. So this is the Lush palette. This is a fairly new release from Colourpop. I want to say it came out last year. This is probably one of the best Colourpop palettes I've ever used. I think the packaging is 10 out of 10. I think the color story is absolutely fabulous. I love the greens and the blues together. I even think that the neutral tones in here are super special. This shade in particular, this is the shade Eco. It is the most gorgeous kind of like yellowy, like cantaloupe kind of shade. You know, like the cantaloupe melon? That color it is. This is like, it's cantaloupe in an eyeshadow, and it looks so beautiful in the transition area. It is absolutely, it is incredible. I think the quality of the shadows in here is 10 out of 10. This lime green shimmer is just absolutely everything. I love the mattes in here. This kind of like bright electric blue is super beautiful as well. Even just those colors together, I think it is so tropical and a little bit unexpected. It is neutral, but neutral for the color lover. So it goes on and it's easy to wear, but it's still fun to play with. This is a fantastic palette. Again, this is another one of those palettes that I have 2 of. I don't know how I got 2 Lush palettes, but apparently I do. It looks like I might have swatched this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to spray it down with some alcohol, and I'm going to put this in the giveaway. So we have the brand new Lilac You A Lot. And then we also, I've never used this one because I can definitely tell that it's just been swatched. So I'm going to clean it up, and both of these are going to be going into the giveaway. Coming in at number 4 is Blue Velvet. And this one is a fairly new release, like within the last couple of months, I think, because I think that they released this one for the new Target collection that they have going on. This is beautiful. This is a beautiful blue, icy, gorgeous, frosty ice princess kind of palette. It is stunning. I love the tones in here. Everything is so bright. That blue, that center shade is probably my favorite shade out of the entire palette. It is so icy and like it's like a true cornflower snowflake blue. I'm gonna get so much use out of this come winter. Like I can already see my inner ice queen just kind of like clawing herself to the surface. I am absolutely in love with this palette. I love the way that it is set up. You get super light to super deep and everything in between. You get great versatility and depth in here. I mean, it's just good. It is a well thought out. You've got all kinds of like transition shades. There's a good gradient going on. The better the gradient, the easier it is to make the eye look, because then you're not having to jump from super light to super deep and having to blend them in between. The more kind of like mid-tone shades you have, the easier it is to get from deep to light or light to deep. It just makes it really easy to use. So I'm very excited about this. I can't wait. I cannot wait to go to town. That blue is like, I would buy this whole palette again just for that. In at number 3, we have the Hocus Pocus 2 palette, and I love this. I love this so much. Those colors, the greens in here and the oranges and the purples, and I think that it's really well done. I think packaging, absolutely stellar. I adore this packaging. I love that the edges are kind of flush. I love how heavy it feels. I love that it's soft touch matte packaging. I love the graphics on the front. I love everything about this palette. I love everything about this palette. And then the formulas in here are just fantastic. I love the tones in here. I think that these shimmer shades are absolutely just everything. You get one that's kind of sheer in a topper shade, and then you get one that's like super opaque and icy. The greens in here are really beautiful. I love that you get a matte and a metallic green. Oftentimes they'll just give you that metallic one, but I love that they put a matte one in here. I love that you get a matte and a metallic orange as well, the same way with the purple. I just think that the way that this palette is set up, however you like to do your eye makeup, however you like to structure it, there's a shade in here that's going to help you out along the way. It's just really fantastic. I love that you get a nice deep dark black in here. I think it's fantastic. I like that you get some kind of softer transition tones in here, and because of the tones that they're using, they're going to go with absolutely everything. Yeah, it's just fantastic. It's fire. I have used this so many times. I will continue to use it. It is a go-to for me when it comes to Halloween makeup. It's got orange, it's got green, and it's got purple. It's just about everything that I need for Halloween makeup look. This is just fantastic. I love it so much. Palette number 2 is Little Ray of Sunshine. This is probably my oldest Colourpop palette. This is like, when I open this, you're going to see how close I am to hitting pan in so many of these different shades. This is like, it's not available anymore. I believe that they released the Honey to replace this palette. This is like the OG Honey, and that's why it's ranking much higher than the Honey. But the thing that I think is so special about this is the tones in here. So you get those really gorgeous like mustardy tones, but just these two, these 3 shades right here, I think make the entire palette. I think these 3 tones, they have such a gorgeous kind of mixture of this really kind of like taupey gray tone that contrasts against the much warmer kind of mustardy yellows, and it makes the eye look so interesting. It's a sunflower palette, and I know it's got sunflowers all over it, but it genuinely makes me feel like a sunflower. It makes me think, it evokes summer for me. I love this palette so much. I am so close to hitting pan on this shade and this shade and this shade. I don't know if you guys can tell. It's beautiful. I love this palette. It is one of my most used Colourpop palettes in my entire collection. If ever I am looking for like a yellow or something a little bit mustardy, or I reach for this palette every single time. It never lets me down. And I know that it doesn't look like anything super special. It is an all matte palette, and that's probably another one of the reasons that I adore it as much as I do, because it's got any kind of yellow matte tone that I could ever need. And I think that the tones in here are just a little bit off in such a way that makes them truly special and a little bit kind of spectacular. And I love the, ooh, don't break. And I love this palette so very much. That is why it is my number 2. For number 1, I think this is really gonna surprise you guys, because it has surprised the crap out of me. Number 1 is a completely and totally obscure Colourpop palette. I guarantee you've probably never even heard of this palette. I got this on sale a good long while ago. I picked this palette up, I think I picked it up for like $5, $4 or $5, and I actually picked up the Super Shock blush that was released with this palette as well. It's a really gorgeous like fuchsia purple tone, stellar as well. But this is the Let's Roll palette by Colourpop, and when I tell you, this is by far and away my most used Colourpop palette. I adore this thing. I actually used this palette not too long ago, I think just a couple of days ago, and came out with a look that I was so incredibly in love with. I was just like, there's no way that this is not going to be my number 1 palette. So you have a whole row of shimmers and a whole row of mattes. And you know, guys, I talk about the fact that I love a good big palette all the time, right? And I understand that this is just, what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This is just a 10-pan palette, relatively small comparatively to all of my much bigger palettes. However, there is something about not only the quality, but the tones of the shadows in this palette that just blow me away every single time I use them. It is probably by far my favorite pastel palette in my entire collection, and it is a pastel palette. It's like a pastel rainbow palette. This green and this blue, they're freaking spectacular. They're so beautiful. And then you have these tones that are just really gorgeous as well. This silver is like, it's everything. It is absolutely, it is perfect. It is perfect. And then you have this shade right here, which is just kind of like this super gorgeous, like icy white kind of tone. They're beautiful. And then this icy white goes gorgeous on top of freaking anything. This orange and the orange and the pink, they walk that line between neon and pastel. They have that super creamy kind of dreaminess to them, but they're so richly pigmented. And y'all, they translate onto the eye true to pan, which is the biggest thing for me. Oftentimes pastels look so beautiful in the pan, and then when you try to translate that to the eye, it's just, you have to build and like pack it on. And these are so beautifully pigmented that you get that instant true to pan color payoff like with the first swipe of your brush. I love this palette. I love this palette so much. It is by far and away my very favorite Colourpop palette of all time. I will probably let myself, I will beg to be buried with this palette. I think it is truly special. It is truly singular in my collection. It's just beautiful. I love it so very much. And that, yeah, that was my ranking. That was all 31 of my Colourpop palettes ranked in order from worst to best. This is the best one in my opinion. I would love to know what you guys think about my rankings in the comments below. Let me know, do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there like a Colourpop palette that I missed, maybe that I need to get my hands on? Let me know what you think I should put in the giveaway. Anything in the bottom 20. In the bottom 20, let me know, because everything in the bottom 20 is definitely on the chopping block. Guys, I will, when I have the giveaway ready, I will make sure to do a video and let you guys know when that's going on. The giveaway that I have going on currently is going to end on the 10th. So if you didn't get to sign up for that one or get to enter into that one, maybe, you know, keep your ear open for when this one starts. Guys, as always, everything is going to be listed in the description box. Go make sure you go check out the TikTok for today's eye look. I love today's makeup. Turned out so beautifully. If you guys do recreate any of my makeup, please tag me in your posts so that way I can come show you guys a little bit of love. As always, no filters, no fancy lighting. It's just me sitting in front of my camera, ranking my Colourpop palettes, hoping you guys are enjoying what I'm doing. And until next time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're important. Bye.